School safety is an important topic on the agenda all year round, and that includes keeping campuses free of crime and violence while making sure that the students and staff are safe. Today we have Bobby Johnson. Bobby, you're a true safety advocate with decades of law enforcement experience. So how can schools begin to implement these safety plans?
Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to meet with professionals, whether that be a local law enforcement or a school safety expert. We have to remember that each plan that you make for the school itself should be tailor-made to that specific school. Every school is different. Some are multiple floors and some are ground level. And this is a perfect time to talk about this during America's Safe Schools Week. Good time for your community, your law enforcement, and your administration to come together and make sure that plans are in place.
Now, those plans are so important. A lot of times can be the difference between life and death. So how do you go about training them to execute those plans?
Well, first thing is we meet with the staff and the administration, and we see what they have in place. We alter them, we make suggestions to them. After that, then we meet with the teachers themselves, and we give them a little bit more of an individual training about it. We pick up what the vulnerable areas are of the school, and we also conduct live scenarios with the teachers. We talk about what to do in the event of, let's just say, an intoxicated parent comes into the school and wants to pick up their child and go into a car, or a custody issue, or an intruder. We talk about that. It basically comes down to the more you train, the more you will be prepared as a school.
And kind of following on that, as you prepare and as you train, that's great, but are there any ways that school officials can start to maybe deter these things from happening?
Well, really what we're looking to do is if anybody's looking to come in from the outside, we want to delay their entry. That's the most important part. We start off with the entranceways and we try to limit them of how people are coming in. We want to, again, with delaying, windows are very vulnerable. So basically, there's a great product out there called 3M's window film and attachment system. That is going to slow down anybody trying to come into the school. It's a clear film that goes over the inside of the window, attaches to the window frame itself, and it's going to stop that smash and grab what we talk about.
Now, these can be some pretty scary times for parents, students, and staff members. So where can they get some more information?
You can go to schoolsafetystrategies.com or 3m.com/schoolsafety.
All right. Thanks so much, Bobby.
Thank you very much, Alex.
And we appreciate 3M for bringing us that information. We'll be right back.